So we've got a lovely, fun, summery watercolour um, painting here. So we've got all sorts of topic, ice creams, lollipops, ice lollies, summer fruits like peaches and watermelon. So whatever you fancy doing. And I've chosen this one. You could actually use any materials for these. They are lovely. I've just gone with watercolour. I might drop in a bit of watercolour pencil. You could drop in a bit of salt especially with the ice creams, if you just drop the salt in while you're working, and then that's quite fun. And just experiment with that and scrape it off when it's dry at the end, if it is dry at the end. If it's not, leave it on a bit longer. So I really am going in, and I'm going to go in with a bit of pen. So we've got a bit of line and wash. So I'm going to make this quite washy and then use my pen to kind of tighten things up. But you could go in with no pen. Depends entirely how you feel about it. So all I'm going to do, obviously this divides quite nicely, doesn't it, into straight down the middle here, if you wanted to. So I'm going to, I suppose I could do a little line down there just so that it's helpful, but if not, you can just draw them out. And the thing is with when you make something a little bit more illustrative, it doesn't really matter if it's not really perfect, because it's quite, it's quite loose and fun. So this comes out just a little bit further at the bottom. And make that width just a little bit more, not too much. And then I'm just going to have ever such a nice curved edges on these. But you don't even need to do this. You can just go straight in with some paint if you want. If you like a little bit more. If you enjoy the drawing out, then go for it. That's the other thing, isn't it? Do more of what you fancy. If you're in a drawing mood, you can use a little bit of drawing. So what about that? Actually, I'll leave it in for a minute. And then I probably will put a little bit in just so I've got a little, I can kind of keep some highlights around it. These seem to go straight down. They're quite straight, aren't they there? But again, I'm really not fussing because you can see how wavy, I mean, on an ice lolly anyway, they are a bit like wavy, aren't they? Where the molds kind of don't get them perfectly, but it's a lovely, fun thing to kind of just explore. Lovely, bright colours, not ones that we typically use, really. Not the most natural colours, but they are fun. Look lovely on a little wall somewhere. And again, you can put a little wash in the background here, or you can keep it nice and just a bit sharp with just your white. And I'm going to do that with this. Sometimes I quite like just a nice white background. I'll put a bit more pressure on. If you're drawing it, keep it nice and light with not too much pressure, because you don't want you want to be able to kind of just rub it out and get rid of the lines. There we go. And we're getting the bottom in there with the lollipop sticks. Well, we can have a lot of fun with these kind of nice shapes, can't we? Really, they are really good fun. And then here, just making sure I can actually fit these lollipops on. It's quite close to that one, isn't it now? I've taped over the edges of this as well, so that's allowed a little bit of space too. Bit bumpy at the top, but you can, have a little play with the shapes. Just nice to be a little bit playful sometimes when we're doing the painting with no expectations of what it's going to look like. Makes it a little bit more fun as well to do it. Another lollipop stick in there. And then we've got this rocket lolly. I'm just going to start with that. Make sure I go out as far as I need to with the base of that. Oh, it's quite thin actually, that one, isn't it? Like that one is much wider in the middle. That's the thing I was looking, thinking, oh, it doesn't fit, but it's nothing like as wide as this. I'm going to pop a little mark where the base is, just so I know that that's going to fit. Where it comes out, kind of just around halfway. And then where it comes out again, get these ridges on, don't we? And then we get this lovely top of the rocket lolly there at the top there. We'll fill all the other details in as we go. Bring this right out to the edge. And then again, just looking at we've got these ridges on. I might put the ridges on first a little bit here. Bring that down, that's the edge of there. And then we've got this kind of rocket bit of the rocket lolly here. Which is all fun, isn't it? So lovely. All the way down. And we can create a little bit of depth with the shadow in between these colours here as well, which helps. You can make it a bit darker up that centre line as well. And I can't quite see what's going on there, but it's a little bit of a bump where those ridges on the rocket lolly are. Oh, we do have some fun topics. Right, so just now going to pop on, it kind of comes round the bobble bits, isn't it? Like that one's upside down, and it comes round, and then it goes in, and then just kind of follows those little ridges. So again, that helps to give the shape, and we've got that little wave. So round, round, and then up and up in the ridges. And then it should be the same, I would imagine, here as well, where it changes. Right up there. Yeah, so up. Oh, hang on now, other way. Round, up, round. Maybe not quite so wavy, up, round. So we're just following the same as the top one until we get all those shapes in. I've got a bit of a wonky one here, so I'm just going to change that one. And then there we go, good to go, really. So it's just very much about exploring now. I'm just going to get rid of this line that I did draw there, though. You want to be able to kind of get rid of any drawn in lines or anything as well. So it's just really thinking, and the beauty with ice lollies or ice creams or fruit, even when you've got bits of them, is you can just tackle each section at a time, and work on each area. So we will go light to dark, reserving any areas that are really light coloured. But you can start where you want, really, can't you? Because if you've got a particular ice lolly you fancy, I mean, I suppose I do tend to work, because I'm left-handed, I tend to work right to left, so I'm not going over, that once I've done it to get to that. But that's just a practical thing. And if you can turn your pages round and things like that, whereas I can't here, so I think I'll do that. I'll just start and work my way across. But beautiful colours. So when we've got light bits, we can either reserve those light bits, got to be careful to make sure we leave them. And then just look at all the different tones. You'll see that there's, even in these reds, there's like different oranges, and you might even see some pinky colours. So we just got to mix up and test. I do a lot of testing here. And I probably will go in with my pen at the end just to do a little bit of the line and the wash. Sorry, the line bit, the line and wash, which is just a bit of added fun to make it more like an illustration that you'd see in a book or something. Right, so we need some water. Let's see, get some colours mixed up first. Let's see what we've got. And I could go in with my pencils, but I think for the moment I'm happy just with the paint today. So it's just getting the right tones, isn't it? Make sure I haven't got a messy. I'm gonna give that a quick clean up first. Messy palette to start with, because if you've got grey and things on it, I've got a bit of blue, I think, from last week. It will make it a little bit muddy. That's actually, that's not going to come off most of that. There we go. So we go in, get some kind of different orangey colours in there. And I'm going to kind of almost go where it's darker with some red. So I'm going to get, swear it's nice to have a few colours, because you might want to drop some in as well. We can just have a good play tonight and really have an experiment. So let's try that one. Quite like that one. We'll also drop in some nice reddy colours. There's some quite dark areas that are a bit cooler, so let's try them. Yeah, so I might want to drop in a couple of darker ones as well. But I might also want some kind of peachy ones. So I'm going to have some yellow and red together to make a bit more of a peach. So that's my dark. And obviously, the bigger you are, if you're working in A4 or A3, you'll need a lot more. I've got a very small bit of paper here. And then I'm going to bring in a bit of a yellow colour for this top bit, for this edge where it's kind of catching the light, and make up a bit of yellow there and a bit of orange. Sorry, a bit of that kind of orange. Right, there we go. I'm going to thin that right down. Get a little bit more water in, see what that's like. Okay, I'm going to warm that up with a bit more orange in, not quite as. Yeah, but I feel a bit more like it. All right, and there we go. And then you just need the right size brush for your for your paper. You want to go a little bit bigger in these. So light to dark. So I've been looking. I have got, like, in this top section, there's a sort of real light bit in there. So I'm going to go in, start dropping this colour, but leaving any that are really light. That's the difficult bit to do. And I'll put the top there. And then anything else I'm seeing that's really light that I can't leave, I will have to just pop it out with a bit of tissue. The difference is, at the minute, this is looking quite orangey, but compared to a darker one, it'll feel quite light. I'm just going to lift that out before I know I can go around it more carefully. And I'll just build that up as we go. And you can do that lovely pushing it around, the paint around. Go. And then building up those colours. Now, I might have to just let it dry for a little bit. We'll see. I quite like the idea of dropping it in. But again, we don't know until we go in how much it's going to spread. And if it's going to spread too much, you'll need to wait just a little bit. You know, if it's all going to bleed in and you don't want it to, then hang on. I'm trying to get a swipe of the light colour down the middle. So yeah, I'm just going to leave it a little bit to dry a tiny bit until I go in because it's quite damp. Whereas last week, this is the difference in the conditions. When it was really hot, it was just bleeding into it everywhere. So what I might do is just go around this little bit as well and put the lighter bits into the top here where it catches the light as well. Just do that, a little bit of work on that. There's also some quite light bits in there as well. So it's working out how we're going to get those in. I'm just building those colours up. I'm going to have to leave just some of these areas that are very light here. And then, you know, you can work on another area, or if you feel it's dry enough to go back to, you can always go try, build up another layer in there. That might be right now. It's drying still fairly quickly, you see. So I'm going to go in with this slightly darker colour now. Build it up. You can just build it up slowly. If you're not sure, best to build it up more slowly. Before I go in with a really deep, much deeper colour. And then I'm going to go in with a bit more of a contrast for these darks. Spreading a little bit too much there though. Need to let it dry a bit more. So between the areas between, or the bits that are in the shadow, I'll go in a little bit darker. This week it'll be much easier to move those around. So content. Try a bit more of this. Let this spread a bit. This bit of the base is a bit more in the shade, shadow, so it's a bit darker. I'm just taking out where it's lighter here while I can. And I'm just darkening, even more where some of these bits are. Right, well, that's drying the move on. So just keep moving on, really. A little look at the different shades of the yellows and things like that. So I've got some warmer yellows, some brighter yellows, kind of a cooler yellow down the middle. So you could try different ones. You could try your Acadian yellows, which are much more warm, and the lemon yellows, which are much more like acidic. And just see which you prefer and which are going to work better. That's like a lemon yellow. It's got more zestiness to it. That one's not quite Acadian. It's probably like a chrome yellow. And then this one, I'd say is more Acadian. You can see the difference there. So play with the different colour palettes of yellows. So it might transition, you might make this a little slight, Acadian yellow may have a bit more, just a tiny bit of orange in it as well. So it's just on the verge. And then of course it's how you thin them down. Do you want to thin it down for some of the bits that are on the top, like sticking up, they light a bit, so it catches the light here. Whereas dip your tissue as well if you want a bit more light, putting in, dip your tissue and take it out. while it's still damp. And then I'm going to go in with a bit of a darker, I might even use a little bit of yellow ochre because that's not quite as warm. I might use a bit of yellow ochre down the middle here. You can always try that out on your palette, see what happens. That's going to have that. It's got the less warmth, which is what you would expect to see in the shady bit, wouldn't you? Like less warmth. It's kind of sinking in a bit. And a bit of fun putting all these colours together. Pull this down. Nice bright light, much lighter now. Lighter colours. Again, it's like how thin do you go with the lightest areas so that they're matching the light. This is where you could use a bit of salt actually if you wanted to. Just to kind of, pop it and then it'll disperse and leave some little light areas. Or you can just dab a bit of tissue, a bit of paper, pull it out that way. That's quite fun. Building up the brightness of these colours. Take a little bit out here where I've missed some lighter areas. With a bit of wet tissue. And then I'm going with this nice, much deeper one that we've got in the middle here. And again, like you can go back once the other areas are dry, so you can get that kind of more defined area. You can just go back and make it a little bit darker when you're ready. Just allow yourself to be kind of swept up in the moment, though it's so nice. Have a bit of fun with it, because I'm just going to go over this eventually with a little bit of a pen as well, so that'll add to the fun. Feel? The thing with illustrations are, it needs to feel it needs to feel light. And a bit playful, really. So just have a little think about what colour you can go in with for the lolly sticks. They're quite pale. I actually, at this point, would add some white to the colour. So I might try a bit of, say, ochre. I'll just move this over a bit. I might try a bit of yellow ochre with that. And then it'll make it more pastel, which is what I want, really, for that. So we use that for my lolly sticks. It's got quite a bit of white in it. There we go. And then anywhere I want to get slightly darker, I'll just drop some little bits of colour in. It's just like, is it warmer? Is it cooler? You can always put a bit of tiny brown in there as well, just on the outskirts. It's a bit of a contrast. So I'm just going in with a dark brown. Um, just where it's also slightly darker, I'll just drop that in over the base of the stick and things like that. And there's a bit of shadow under it. Okay, we'll leave that there for the moment and carry on with the next one. So this has obviously got more white light bits in it. And I can add, if I want to go back in a bit and add anything, I can do that. Yeah, I'm going to make this little bit down the middle a bit darker there. See if it's dry enough. Oops, a bit. I'm going to go in with a bit of kind of a dark purpley red in here as well to make that even darker as well, so get that. But I mean, you can stop, you can keep it fairly light. But this is almost like a bit of alizarin crimson in there because it's a quite a cool red and it makes it feel a bit more deep around where these bits stick up if you've put those in the shadows. And it creates a bit more depth around them, makes all the bits stick out a little bit. And then we're just moving on to the next one, seeing what we've got there. We'll take a pause. Okay, so moving on. Moving on to loveliness. See, so pinks. You may have some colours in your palette already. I'm just going to move this over. I'm going to give it a bit of a clean up. I'm not going to use those yellows at the moment. Just a bit of a clean up, clear some space. Here's an easy clean up with watercolour, which we like, don't we? There we go. Yeah, so I'll pop this over here a little bit. We can, you know. With the pink, sometimes you may have some kind of crimsony colours, like you might have an alizarin crimson. When you put it on with a lot of pigment, obviously we can get it quite dark. That's actually quite a good match. I might go with that one. This one's, I think actually this one isn't an alizarin crimson. I think it's more rose. So I can use that. I can water it right down, make it really watery and light, and then I can add more pigment in a minute. So I'm not actually going to mix them. I'm going to just use one tone, I think, for this. Let's see. So thinned right down, I can get these nice watery colours. So I'm just going to go for it with this. Always add more colours, so it'll be nice and light to start with, and then build in some other colours in there. And you can also, you know, leave some little bits out if you're wanting to as well, like leave some little lighter bits out, or you can just kind of pull them out. It's up to you. Just getting some colour down for the moment. Do like it when you get these nice loose light colours that you can just drag around. It's all good fun. So I'm just going to go in now and lift out some of these much lighter areas. Yeah. I'm just going in and kind of just darkening some of these areas as well. Where it's particularly a bit darker. Trying to make it kind of really watery so that it feels like it blends nicely. Get some on the inside, slightly darker on the inside, a bit more mottled as well. So again, you could even try, if you wanted to try some more, some salt in there, you get that nice texture. Just drop it in. Just letting it gather in the corner here. You can do that with watercolours, which is a nice way of doing it. Pour out of here, just make it lighter in places again. That nice mottled effect. Places. And I'm just going to go in and drop in and just darken off some of these little areas as well. There you get the so you can get some of the some of the depth. I think that's actually getting a little bit too damp, so I need to let it dry a bit for a moment. Let's get this outer edge though, and darker bits on this side here. And I'll leave that for the moment because I can't really do much more to it at the minute. Just darken a few bits around the outside. Just pop in some of this. I've just got rid of that, I just realised. Um, just popping in some of this lolly stick colour again. So I've put on the base colour, the lighter one, while the rest of it's drying. It's fun. I may even do this one over here. Slightly cooler tones. I might drop in a very small amount of blue into that, just so it feels just a slightly different tone over here. I can warm it up as well. And then just pop like there's a few little kind of lines, almost like wood lines on that one, which is really interesting. So slightly warmer. So I'm just gonna see if I can just pull some lines through with a little bit of a warmer um, sienna colour there. And then when I feel this has dried off a bit, I'll just go in with a darken up some of these, shadowy areas in here. And then just darken a bit further. So it's a good example really of how we can just use one colour and just kind of get the shadows and things in place as well. Vary the tones. Just with more or less water. I'll leave that one now. And then moving on to the next one. And again, we're just looking at those tones. So the top bit's going to be the most challenging because it's got a lot of bits in between it. So I think I'm just going to go in and just drop in some of those brighter colours. Run with some yellows. And just kind of randomly put those in first because they're the lighter colours. There's some whites in there as well, so that's going to be the challenge. Mm. But again, we're not trying to recreate a photograph. We're trying to create our artist's impression. So this time I'm using a different kind of a pink. I want more of a more of a vivid pink. So I want to try and put a bit of red in there. Red in with my white, so it gives more of a kind of a sugary pink than a bit of white. And that's obviously going to be very dark. I don't want it quite that, I want it more lighter, so I'm just going to go in. Just thin that down. Yep, happy with that. Very enjoyable as well, just popping all these little bits in, little shapes. We've got like yellow, pinks and whites in there, so I'm going to have to do the whites, I'm going to have to go around some whites and leave some gaps, some shapes. So I'm going to come back to this when it's dry. So I'm going to leave that as it is to dry first and then work on this middle section, which is a little bit, not really white, so the white, the background of the paper you can see. I think it's a really super watered down, but might even be too, yeah, it's still a bit of a tinge, so I might actually go in with some white and make it a bit of a pastel-y tone. Just get some of this what I've been using and some white in there. And we'll test that, see if it's put on. That looks a bit grey, I think. Now let me see. Add a tiny bit of purple in there. Bit of lilac. Lighten it up a bit. And then I've got some more. Again, it'll depend on what you're seeing, but I just find that a bit brighter than the pink. So let's see. Yeah, that'll do. I'm just going to go in, make this very, just going to create this wash. So it's just a bit of a tint. And then I might just drop a tiny bit more purple in. I want to just make an area slightly more, get a slightly more, I'll let that run a bit. It's a bit washy. Just let that dry out. And I'm thinking about this bottom colour as well. It's almost purpley, alizarian crimsony. Let's have a little look at what we've got here. Try this, move this over. So that was the one I used there. That's purpley. I'd say this is a bit, it's a bit more, it's not totally violet, it's a bit more magenta-y. Bit slightly warmer, but then when I go in with the red, which is, I think that's the alizarian crimson there. And use these two simultaneously and just kind of drop them together because they're very, but I'm using a lot of pigment on here, so that's the difference. Even more, I think, needed. So quite heavily pigmented. And then same with the purple. that I'm just dropping. Might even need to be a bit darker than that, actually. Let's try another one. Yeah, so that's more violet, it's got less colour in. So I'll kind of use a combination of them. We'll just do the bottom of that dry before we go out to that line. So I'll try. The thing is with the watercolour, we can always darken. We can't lighten, but we can darken. And take out this edge a little bit with a clean dry brush here, because I've let that run a bit. So I'm going to take out any liquids so that it's not going to run anymore. Just leave it be for a moment, let it dry. Top's still a bit wet. And then I'm going to start to drop a few colours in this bottom area here. Below a little bit, below on it a little bit. When you load it up a lot, it gets very dark. So let's see if we can pop a little bit more on here at the bottom. Yeah. I'm just defining this and just adding it a little bit more depth of colour just by dropping in more. So it's going to make it very, very wet again, but that's fine. And then I'll go in with these much darker, deeper bits, kind of in this centre here. And it's quite deep in colour and tone. I suppose in the centre of the lolly, really, isn't it, where the stick goes through? Maybe that's what it is. Could be. Leave that to dry because that's really starting to pool a bit. That's the only problem with watercolour. It can pool a bit around the edges when it starts to move. Just dropping a few other colours in there. And then going back to this, let's see. Okay, feels like it's nearly dry there. So what I can actually do, because it is bleeding a bit in there. Maybe it's a bit too soon before that dried. I need to go in and kind of drop some dark chocolate colour between and try and create some, so I could maybe go in a small brush and try and create some light colours as well. So I might almost draw around the light colours. So you're gonna have to go in with a colour here that's going to be dark enough. So you might, this chocolate colour, probably I'm going to use, let's see that in the corner there. That one is really dark brown there, that would be fine. So I'm just going to just start with kind of create a few, the outline of a few white ones so I know that they're in there. And then I will go around the rest of it and get those in as well. But there's quite a lot of white ones on here. Now, of course, you can use masking fluid. You could have gone through and masked out all of the light ones, or pretty much all of them, and then coloured them in, you know, left some white. That's the other way you can do it. It doesn't matter which way you choose, really. Oops. Now this is my left-handedness here. Getting in the way. Look, I'm making a right mess here. Right. I'm smudging it with my hand. I want to take some of that out just for the moment, and then I'll add it when it's properly dry rather than rushing to get that in. Whichever way you do it, it's a little bit fluffy anyway, but enjoyable. So I'm just going to go in now and drop some chocolate through, like colours through. And I've just used burnt umber here. And try with care, go around and pop those, any remaining darker colours in between. Just keep going. It's just a little process. And I might just soften that top down by putting a few on the top there. I'll wait till it dries a little bit though. Just kind of like just pop them over the top so it just feels like they're going, you know, round the side there. I will, however, unfortunately, I have got this kind of bleed a little bit on the side, but never mind. This is like being impatient. So, nearly there. So just going back round here, making it tidy as possible. And I can't really do anything like this. That just needs to dry really there. Because it's kind of bled out, but never mind. It'll be fine. It's part of the process sometimes when it doesn't quite go where you want it to. And that's really kind of where I would stop. Obviously, I've got to let this dry now. And I might kind of just pop a little bit more depth of colour in there. But be careful because if I keep scraping this off, what will happen is it will lose the top of the paper will just kind of come off. Just leave it now till it dries. But it's just a a really fun way of kind of adding another dimension. And if you wanted to do the line and wash, all I would be thinking about, I'll just do it on this one because that one's not dry enough, is, you can take one of your lollies, have a little play with it, and just decide, are you going to just use a bit of a sketch kind of a feel on it? Mine is very sketchy. I'll use lots of little lines and it's quite fun. And if you're not sure where to start, just start maybe where you've got a bit of a shadow area. And then you can just sketch away, but you might love your lollies so much or your these so much that you don't want to mess about. That's fine. Sometimes you do a piece you really like it, you think I don't want to do anything to that, and that's not a problem. I'm just showing you, kind of with a line and wash what you can do. And I don't tend to draw like really thick, lines round, but um, yeah, it just makes it a bit kind of a fresh little fun style. Just something slightly different when you pop that on. That's me seeing a little book or something. And that's it. I'm not going to do all of them. I'll leave 2 of them as they are. I hope that's been really helpful for you, and just a little bit of fun for a summer topic.